Today we begin our rebuild of the Chicago Bears here on Madden 22, with our goal being to win a Super Bowl in 5 seasons or less. Now we're actually not going to be playing the games in this series, we're just going to be simming them. I wanted to focus mostly on roster building in this franchise. I've already gone ahead and forced wins and losses to make sure that everybody ends up with the exact same record that they finished with in real life, except for the Lions and Steelers. You can't force ties in Madden, so I had to give the win to the Steelers in order to make sure that they made the postseason. And one other thing I wanted to mention is that we are nearing 500 subscribers on the channel. If you want to help the channel out and haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so. The Bears find themselves in a pretty tough spot. They're coming off a season where they went 6-11. They don't have a first-round draft pick, and they also don't have a ton of cap space. Now, the reason they don't have a first-round draft pick in this upcoming draft is because they, of course, used it to trade up and get Justin Fields last year, which I don't think was a bad move. He definitely has a lot of talent and is a bright spot and a building block for this Bears roster. Now, he didn't get a fair shot to really put all of his talent on display last year due to some awful coaching and honestly a pretty terrible roster around him. One of the players I do like that is around him is Darnell Mooney. He has had a bit of a drop problem in real life, but that shouldn't be a problem in Madden. He has 92 catching. I don't know how high his ceiling actually is. I don't think he's talented enough to necessarily be a number 1 on a contending team, but he's definitely a solid number 2 or 3. There is also Cole Kmet, who has a lot of talent at tight end and was the Bears' first pick in the 2020 draft as a second rounder. As far as the Bears' offensive line goes, I mean, you have Tevin Jenkins, who's definitely a better right tackle than left tackle, but will he stay healthy and will he develop? I don't really know. The Bears' defense is led by Roquan Smith, who is actually going to be on the last year of his contract, so you're going to have to decide whether or not you want to extend him. I mean, I think that's going to be a pretty easy decision. I think he is one of the most underrated players in all of the NFL. I don't know how he just keeps not getting voted into the Pro Bowl. Jalen Johnson at corner is another building block on this defense, but is he a number 1 corner on a Super Bowl contending team, or is he more of a number 2? And the last player that I want to talk about individually really is Travis Gibson. I mean, he's not great in Madden, unfortunately, but he's okay, kind of a balanced player. It's somebody that you could count on for a little bit, but probably not to be an elite edge rusher. The Bears running backs, I mean, they're okay. David Montgomery is going to be on the last year of his contract as well, but you have to decide whether or not you want to pay a running back or not. They cut Tariq Cohen. You also have Khalil Herbert as a second-year player. He's not a bad running back, but I don't think he's necessarily a starter in the league. At receiver, Allen Robinson walked in free agency and signed with the Rams. Now, we have a chance to decide if we want to extend him or not, but if you don't extend him, you're going to probably have Darnell Mooney as your number 1 for at least a season. The offensive line for the Bears, we kind of talked about it. It's not great. Larry Borom is all right, but I don't think he's necessarily a full-time starter in the league. Cody Whitehair is on a long-term contract. He is getting a little up there in age, but he can still give you some good football. At center, you kind of have a hole there, and you need to probably fill that this offseason. And at right guard, you have James Daniels, who is going to be a free agent. Do you bring him back or do you not? They let him walk, and he signed with the Steelers, which I think was the wrong decision. I think we will try to extend him. Now, on defense, you don't really have too many building blocks. We kind of already talked about that. They traded Khalil Mack in real life to the Chargers, and I don't think that was the right decision to give up on him. I want to give him one more chance to come back and have a full healthy season to increase that trade value. Robert Quinn is coming off a fantastic season in real life, but he has a pretty bad contract, so I don't think you're really going to be able to trade him either. And at cornerback, you definitely need to find a number 2 or number 1 to play alongside Jalen Johnson, because Artie Burns is not it. I like Eddie Jackson, but he might be a little bit overpaid, but still, you're probably not going to be able to get out of that contract, and you need to find a better strong safety to pair with him anyway. So as a whole, this Bears team, yeah, it has a lot of holes. It's going to be tough to fix it in year 1. I'm not expecting a ton of improvement. Actually, I'm expecting more so a drop-off, because you don't have very many draft picks. You only got 5 of them in this upcoming draft, and you don't have a ton of cap space. And it's not really a lot of ways to really free cap space up this offseason. Before we can actually get into the offseason, we need to hire an entire new coaching staff. Of course, we were going to fire Matt Nagy. He was absolutely brutal those last 2 years. As our new head coach, we're going to go with Emmanuel Ortega. he wants to run a vertical zone run scheme on offense and a 4-3 defense. As our OC, we're going to go with Todd Walters. He wants to run the same offensive scheme as Emmanuel Ortega, so they should be on the same page. And as far as our defensive coordinator goes, he's going to want to run a 4-3 quarters defense. It will be Logan Henry. It's a little bit different than the 4-3 under, but still a 4-3 defense, which will mean we have to move a couple of our defenders around, but that shouldn't be a problem. I also went ahead and forced wins and losses in the postseason to make sure that the Rams would win the Super Bowl over top of the Bengals. If you take a look at the yearly award winners, you'll see that Justin Fields won Rookie of the Year, but he did not go up a dev trait, and he only got one upgrade, so it doesn't really change a ton. Jimmy Graham actually ended up retiring after 12 years. He had one more year left on his deal that was worth about $10 million in total, so that frees up some extra cap space, but we are going to have to spend that right away to try and extend James Daniels. I don't know why the Bears let him walk in free agency. He's only 24 years old, and I figure why not at least offer him something and hope that he accepts. We're going to offer him 3 years, $24 million, and hope that he accepts. He does, so the right side of our offensive line is pretty much set with him and Tevin Jenkins. Akeem Hicks is not really a fit for a 4-3 defense, so we're not even going to offer him a contract at all. But I do think that Bilal Nichols is kind of a fit for the interior defensive line in a 4-3, but I don't want to overpay him, so we're going to throw out a cheap offer for just 2 years and $13 million. He probably will decline this, but why not offer it at least? And yeah, he does decline it, so he's going to test out free agency. The last player we're going to look at possibly re-signing is Allen Robinson. He is approaching 30 years old, and he doesn't really want to be here anymore. He's already regressing, but he did go up to superstar dev because of the way he simmed in our franchise, so I figured we should at least offer him, but again, we're going to lowball him, and he's probably going to decline, and yep, he's going to move on and go somewhere else in free agency. There is one last move that I would like to make before we get into free agency, and that is to release Danny Trevathan, who is 32 years old and got hit really hard with regression. At this point, I think it's better to have that $5 million in extra cap space than to have him on the roster. We're actually going to have about $75 million in available cap space, but we're going to have to use a lot of that on depth because we can't get our depth through the draft this year, only having 5 draft picks. The first offer we're putting out there is for Andrew Beck, a fullback. We're going to need one since we made a scheme change. They didn't actually have a true fullback on the roster last year. At receiver, I know they went with Byron Pringle in real life, but he's being offered by a couple of other teams, and I would rather go with Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who has better speed and is actually going to be a bit cheaper at about $5 million per year if he accepts. We have a huge hole at receiver. Actually, Darnell Mooney is the only receiver on the roster currently, so we're going to also offer Andy Isabella. He has great speed. I don't think he got a true fair shot with the Cardinals, so I guess we'll give him a chance to rebound in Chicago. Joshua Perkins, he could be tight end too. He's a pretty versatile player, solid speed, decent hands, and is a pretty good blocker. Could be a solid tight end too. It'll be a 1-year offer for $2 million. At left tackle, we're going to go after Joseph Noteboom, and I don't want him to exactly be our starter, but if we can't find somebody better in the draft, I guess he will be fine for at least 1 season. Another player who should be good for 1 season is Ben Jones. We're going to offer the 33-year-old a 1-year deal for $5 million. As a backup tackle or guard option, we're going to go after Mike Remmers. Another 1-year offer, this one for just $2.25 million. On the defensive side of the ball, we're going to go after Quan Alexander as an outside linebacker option to pair alongside Roquan Smith. He has good coverage, good speed. I think he'd be a great fit as we try to make this transition to a 4-3 defense. So we're going after him on a 2-year deal for $12 million. We'll see if we can get him over top of the Rams and Jets. We do need a couple of backups at linebacker, and I think LJ Fort can provide a good veteran presence as a backup. So another 1-year offer going out to him. And I mentioned plenty of times that we need another corner to play alongside Jalen Johnson, and I think Levi Wallace is pretty solid. He is only 27 years old. We'll go after him on a 2-year deal. LaMarcus Joyner, we have a need at strong safety, so we're going to go after him on a 2-year deal, but he could end up getting traded if year 1 does not go the way we want it to. So that will be all the offers we're going to put out in the first round of free agency. Hopefully we are at least able to get a couple of them. And like I mentioned, we're going after a lot of depth guys because we can't really get our depth through the draft, only having 5 draft picks. We should probably start talking about some of the players that will be available in the upcoming draft. Let's start with Taj Sharpton, a tight end out of Miami. He's only 21 years old, had the best 40-yard dash time of any tight end in this upcoming draft. Good hands, good blocker, but do we really want to spend our first pick on a tight end when we already have Cole Kmet? I mean, Sharpton did have a positive draft story talking about him breaking the all-time record for touchdown receptions in a season at Miami. There are a couple of okay options later in the draft for some playmakers at receiver, Ahmad Bates being one of them. You can see he has a day 3 projection, but a round 1 or 2 talent. Now, he obviously is going to have a couple of weaknesses, one of them being his ability to run routes medium, as it's an F. I mean, that's not great, but you're going to have weaknesses on any player that is a day 3 pick, more than likely. Another receiver option late in the draft is Shadon Alam. Both of these guys didn't have the best combines, but definitely have better talent than where they are projected to go, and should be solid options for us to try and get late in the draft. As far as left tackle goes, I talked about possibly drafting one, and the one guy that could be available is Zach Woodson. He is 23 years old and does have F stamina, but he has A awareness. We know his run block finesse is good, but his run block power isn't going to be. But the A awareness tells me he's probably going to be a solid option to possibly start day 1. Now, my favorite player in this draft, and he was actually one of our focus players, is Marco Fletcher. He has a potential undrafted grade for his projection, but he's only 21 years old, out of LSU, had a great combine, and you get to the skill set, he looks like he should be an absolute steal in the draft. B awareness, A pass block. The run block is only a C, but you could get a possible day 1 starter at center really late in the draft if you go after him, and which we're probably going to. Moving on to some of the options we might have available as far as the defense goes, Kirk Lastly being one of them. He has a 2nd or 3rd round projection, B awareness, A play rec, B power moves. If he falls to us in the 2nd round, he could be the pick if we want to go with a defensive lineman. Another player we had as a focus player was Charles Carey, a right outside linebacker out of USC, who is only 21 years old, has a 3rd or 4th round projection. Now, the physicals are okay, the speed's not going to be great, but you get to the skill set, and it's absolutely insane. A awareness, A block shed, A play rec, A tackle, A hit power. I mean, does that look like a 3rd or 4th round pick? No. Now, he could be bad in coverage, which would suck, but he still might be worth a 3rd or 4th round pick, even if he sucks in coverage. We might end up going with a cornerback with our first pick if one of them falls to us. There are 2 guys that I would consider if they did fall, one of them being Zeke Holiday. He has B zone, B awareness. We don't know the man coverage, but A catching, he looks like he's going to be a playmaker out there. There is also Adrian Leonard, a 6'2 corner out of Illinois, who had an absolutely insane combine across the board. And you get to the skill set, it's not bad, except for that he has an F injury, which that alone is concerning, but he also had a draft story talking about him potentially having a degenerative knee condition. Can we really overlook that and use our first pick in the entire draft on him, especially when there might be other players who can fill needs on this team that don't have injury concerns? I don't know. I guess we should probably see who we get in the 1st round of free agency. And it looks like we got Mike Remmers to accept. We got declined by Quan Alexander. But we also got Beck, a punter in Cy Long. Marquez Valdez-Scantling accepts. Noteboom, Joyner, Fort, and Jones also accept. I can't say I'm surprised that Quan Alexander declined our offer to go to the Rams for less money. They are the defending Super Bowl champions. I guess we'll just have to move on to our backup option, and that is Alex Singleton. Now, he's not as dynamic or as good in coverage as Quan Alexander, but he at least should be a little bit cheaper. It'll be a 2-year offer for $8 million. We're going to have to withdraw our offer from Levi Wallace. The Steelers have just offered him such a big contract that we can't even compete. So we'll just move on to Michael Davis, who actually has better speed, is taller, and will be a little bit cheaper. So why not just go after him? One player who has not lived up to their pre-draft expectations, unfortunately, is Jalen Smith. I think it's the perfect opportunity for him to come to the Chicago Bears and possibly revive his career. Another player like that is John Ross, and we're going to give him the exact same offer of 1 year and $3 million. And maybe we get one of them, maybe we get both of them. In the third wave of free agency, we get Michael Davis, Andy Isabella, and Alex Singleton to accept. And the last wave of free agency, we got Jalen Smith and John Ross to accept. We did get rejected by Maurice Hurst, but that was just a throw-in offer to see if we could get him for cheap, and we did not. So before we actually get into the draft, I wanted to take one last look at the roster to see what exactly we should target in the draft. As far as offense goes, I guess we could go after a left tackle, a center, and probably a receiver. But I don't want to be too specific with what we're going to target in the draft. It's mostly just going to be seeing who falls to us and going best player available. On defense, we could use an interior defensive lineman, outside linebacker, a corner, and maybe a strong safety. But yeah, just that's pretty much every position. We could really go any direction in this draft. I guess we'll just get into it and see who ends up falling to us. The Jaguars are on the clock first. Wonder who they're going to take in real life. They're talking about taking an edge rusher, but here in our franchise, they go left tackle. How about the Lions? They are in our division. They're going to go quarterback. Would be interesting to see if they take Malik Willis in real life, who looks like Zeke Holiday goes off the board to the Raiders there at pick 22 in the first round. And Adrian Leonard goes off the board at the pick right before us to the Jets. So I guess we will not be going after a corner with our first pick in this draft. It sucks that both of those cornerbacks are off the board before we even had a chance to take one of them. I guess we'll just have to pick a player at a different position. Greg Matthews is somebody we did not talk about yet. He is probably an edge rusher and not an outside linebacker. Didn't have the best combine or pro day. Has A awareness, A tackle, A finesse move. He would probably be behind Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn for a season, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's also Taj Sharpton, the tight end out of Miami at only 21 years old, who had a good combine and pro day, and we know he's also going to be a good blocker as well as a receiver. But would it be wise to spend our first pick in this draft on a tight end when we already have Cole Kmet and probably have bigger needs than a second tight end? I don't think so, so we'll probably not take him. Kirk Lastly, a defensive end who would have to make the transition to defensive tackle in a 4-3. He's only 21 years old, did not have the best bench press, and we don't know his block shedding, so he's probably not going to be a good run stuffer, and he probably would have to be in a 4-3 defense, so we'll probably avoid taking him. Paul Mackey, another player we did not talk about earlier. He had a great combine and pro day. He is 23 years old, and we do not know his coverage ratings, so I think we'll probably have to avoid him. It would just be too big of a risk to select him. I just keep coming back to Zach Woodson. He is 23 years old, which is kind of a downside. He didn't have the best pro day, but the combine was pretty good. He has A awareness, which tells me he's probably going to be a pretty high overall, and I think we'll make him our selection here. Let's make Zach Woodson a Chicago Bear, and he has hidden dev, 87 strength, 72 speed. We don't know the blocking ratings yet. Hopefully they're good enough to start day one at left tackle. And right now I'm happy with the pick. Hopefully it ends up being good. Greg Matthews goes to pick right after us to the Broncos. We'll check out him. Kirk Lastly off the board to the Washington football team. And Paul Mackey goes to the Ravens. So all these guys we were looking at taking and hoping maybe another one of them would fall down into the third round. Just keep going off the board. And now we're back on the clock in the third round. I guess we should take a look and see who's available. Right outside linebacker, Charles Carey is still available. He's only 21 years old, and he actually had a decent 40-yard dash time during his pro day compared to his combine. And the skill set just looks so good. There's no way we can pass on him with this pick. Let's make him a Chicago Bear, and he only has normal dev. I was definitely expecting hidden. He does have better speed than initially anticipated, but only a normal dev. Kind of a disappointing pick. Hopefully he can at least be a day one starter for us on defense. Ahmad Bates goes off the board to the Bills in the fourth round. He was one of the receivers we had hopes to take late in the draft, but he's gone. So we actually have 2 fifth-round picks, and we're going to take that chance on Marco Fletcher. I mean, he's only 21 years old, had a great pro day and combine, and the skill set looks pretty solid. That would just be crazy to let him fall any further in the draft. Let's also make him a Chicago Bear and hope that he has hidden dev. No, he has normal dev as well. 90 strength is decent, but back-to-back normal devs, that kind of sucks. The Panthers would go with strong safety Taylor Hall, the pick right between our 2 fifths. So we're right back on the clock, and we're going to go with wide receiver Shadon Alam, a 23-year-old out of LSU. He has a second or third round talent. The combine and pro day are both good as well. and the skill set's solid. At least we know he's going to be a high overall. Hopefully he has hidden dev. We kind of need him to be hidden dev, and no, he only has normal dev. I mean, what were the chances that all three of those players would have normal dev when they all had good combines or pro days and good skill sets? I mean, that's just crazy to me. George Gallimore is going to be our last pick in this draft. He actually did have a pretty good combine and pro day as well, but I guess you can't trust that. Run block is decent. Let's just take him. Maybe he has in dev. I doubt it at this point. He's probably just gonna have normal. Yep. 78 speed, 75 strength isn't bad. I guess he can at least fill out the roster. Another tight end out of Notre Dame, even though we have Cole Kmet. Kind of funny, but whatever. Let's just check out our players. Zach Woodson, a 71 overall, does have the hidden dev. And yeah, he's at least good enough to be a day one starter at left tackle. And that means that Joseph Noteboom can be the swing tackle and Mike Remmers can be the backup guard. So I guess that kind of works out. Charles Carey is a 74 overall. Can he cover? No, and he can't even rush the passer either. So he's definitely a 2-down linebacker right now. We're really going to have to work on that coverage in order to get him on the field more. That really sucks, but what are we going to do now? I guess we just kind of have to push through it. Marco Fletcher's a 62 overall. Those are some really good ratings for a 62 overall. Am I crazy? Those look pretty good. The run block power kind of sucks, but you can work on that. Overall, that's not too bad for that low of an overall rating. Definitely, you could work on that and maybe make him a starter down the line. Shadon Alam, just a 71 overall. I thought that'd be a little bit higher. Not bad short route running. He could definitely play some slot receiver. Needs to work on some of the downfield route running. He could also be a solid kick returner. I guess at least he fills out some depth that we needed at receiver. And George Gallimore is a 64 overall. Not bad run blocking, especially considering we did take him in the 6th round. Yeah, worst case scenario, he's just an extra tight end on the roster. Not too bad about that pick. How about some of the guys we did not take? Zeke Holiday, 75 overall, has that hidden dev. And that kind of stings. I wish we would have had a chance at taking him. Adrian Leonard also has hidden dev, 74 overall. Not bad coverage. What about the injury rating? Is it really bad? Yeah, it's just a 78 with a +4 right now, so he's probably going to get hurt all the time. What about Greg Matthews? These are the guys we actually passed on. Yeah, he's hidden dev, 75 overall, and he can really rush the passer. That kind of sucks. But again, we had to take a left tackle. We didn't have to take a left tackle. I wanted to take a left tackle over top of some of these other guys and get that left side hopefully solidified for Justin Fields. Paul Mackey's a 77 overall. Hidden dev. Yeah, we probably should have taken him, but I just couldn't. We didn't know his coverage ratings at all. Yeah, that sucks. Taj Sharpton, also hidden dev. Every single one of these guys would have been a good pick. He can run block. Yeah, he's going to be a good player, man. What about Ahmad Bates? Oh, he's only normal dev. I don't feel too bad about missing out on him, I guess. And he's the same, one overall higher than Shadon Alam. So overall, not the greatest draft, not the worst. But what are you going to do? Just got to move on and hope that some of these guys develop. Before we go through the preseason, we have to set up our focus training players. We can only have 3 of them right now. I guess we'll go with Justin Fields, Zach Woodson, and Charles Carey. Hey, we actually end up going 2-1 in the preseason, and our only loss coming to the Bills by 2. That's not too bad. Doesn't look like Justin Fields played very well. Nick Foles, I didn't mention it, but he's still going to be our backup quarterback this year. He still has 1 more year left on his contract before we can let him walk. At running back, David Montgomery averaging almost 5 yards a carry. Remember, he is on the last year of his contract, so we have to think about extending him or not. Shadon Alam had a big preseason. You like seeing that from the rookie. We are going to sign a new punter. We're going to go with Brian Anger. We released Ty Long. We probably should have a good punter because we're not going to be a very good team this year. Let's go ahead and take a look at the starting lineup before we get into the regular season. We are going to give the nod to Zach Woodson at left tackle, and Shadon Alam will be the starting slot receiver. On defense, we signed Solomon Thomas to be that second defensive tackle. Don't think he's going to play every down, but he should still get the majority of the snaps. But overall, not too many surprises when it comes to the starting lineup for the Bears for year number 1 of this franchise. And when it comes to the practice squad, this should be the practice squad for the entire season, because I have turned practice squad stealing off. It is still currently glitched in Madden. Now, my expectations for the season are not very high. I'm expecting probably about 5 wins, maybe 6 if we're lucky, but still a sub 500 team. Let's just get right into the regular season. We have lost week 1 to the Vikings 44-38 in overtime. And Kirk Cousins, he absolutely decimated us, throwing 5 touchdowns. Not a good start for the defense. Justin Fields getting near 300 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Not the worst, not the best. Looks like David Montgomery had a big day, 18 for 114 and 3 rushing touchdowns. How about Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Darnell Mooney both getting 5 for over 80? Not a bad start to the season for them. Unfortunately, Zach Woodson gave up a sack in his first game. You don't like seeing that. I guess we should probably get into the negotiation process with Roquan Smith. I mean, he is going to be in the thumbnail, or at least he should be. So we should probably at least offer him 5 years, $75 million. Hopefully he sticks around, and he does accept. So he will be around for the entire franchise. I'm definitely happy about that. How about David Montgomery? Should we extend him? Should we not? I guess we'll see how the regular season goes for him. And it looks like we're 0-3 now, losing to the Texans and Lions. That's not great. At least in week 2, Darnell Mooney had a big day, 8 for 126. He is our number 1 receiver right now, and it looks like he's playing like one. I guess we should probably get to the bye week since we have an early one in week 6. And we do win a game over the Eagles, 34-0, but immediately lose to the Jets, 16-6. It looks like we're having a pretty rough season. And I talked about this when we signed him, but we're already not a good team. We might as well just trade LaMarcus Joyner and get a pick for him in the 6th round of the upcoming draft from the Cowboys. I did try trading Robert Quinn, but he's 32 years old and has an awful contract and is only normal dev. And so many teams are in the negative when it comes to cap space that they couldn't even give an offer out for him, or really anybody. So we can't trade him. And now starting at strong safety, we're going to go with Mike Wheatley. He's an undrafted free agent rookie out of Ohio State. He's only 21 years old. Why not give him a chance? And since we're already bad, we might as well put Marco Fletcher in the starting lineup over top of Ben Jones and just see what he has. I mean, what do we have to lose at this point? We actually have a 1st-round pick in this year's draft, so we can pay attention to the mock drafts. And who do they have us taking in mock draft 1? A right end in Tevin Reed. He projects more as a defensive tackle in a 4-3 than a defensive end. As grade to elite at a lot of those physicals, not the best skill set. It's okay from what we see so far. I don't know if I would necessarily take him. How about mock draft 2? They got us taking another right end, this time in Cecil Yankee. He is out of Utah, 21 years old. You like seeing that, a little bit younger, some more time to develop. Not the best physically. C finesse move A, power move A, pursuit B, play rock. Not bad. But is he worth a top 5 pick? That's where we're projected to be right now. I don't know. How about a draft story? This one about left outside linebacker Dom Stockton out of South Carolina. He apparently had a mutual separation from the team. He is 6'6", 261, a round 1 projection. Not bad physicals, A awareness, B block shed, B power move. Looks like a pretty solid player, and if he falls far enough in the draft, we might be able to take him in the 2nd round. I wouldn't take him though top 5. We have lost a couple more games now and are 1-6. We are nearing the midway point of the season, so I guess we should check out and see how everybody's doing. Stat-wise, Justin Fields is playing well. 10 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions, a 60% completion percentage. He's not the reason we're losing. David Montgomery's averaging nearly 5 yards a carry and has 6 touchdowns. He's playing pretty well. The 2 backups are not, though. They're both averaging under 3 yards a carry. And it looks like all of our receivers are playing well. Darnell Mooney, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, both over 500 yards receiving. Cole Kmet leading the team in touchdown catches with 4. And Shadon Alam, the rookie receiver, is also playing pretty well. So the offense in general is not doing too bad. How about the pass blocking? Could be a little bit better, but still not completely abysmally awful. And even James Daniels hasn't given up a sack yet. So I guess the defense is the reason we are losing a lot of these games. Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack both only having 4 sacks kind of sucks. The pass coverage has not been great either, it looks like. Roquan Smith has allowed 25 catches, 18 for Jalen Johnson. Our slot corner Duke Shelley not doing too well. Neither is Michael Davis. So we're 1-6, and it's probably not going to get a lot better. I guess we should focus mostly on the draft. Let's talk about the players we're going to select for focus scouting. Strong safety Darius May out of San Diego State. Right outside linebacker Zamil Johnson out of Washington. And tight end Duke Solomon out of USC. Once we get more information back on them, I guess we'll talk about them some more. We do have a breakout scenario for somebody, and it's going to be Darnell Mooney. He needs to get 3 touchdowns or 150 receiving/rushing yards to go up to superstar. I guess he had a big day against the Giants, and of course we lost to them in overtime. Mooney had 8 for 104 and 2 scores. Marquez Valdez-Scantling also had 6 for 113. I mean, we're mostly focused on Mooney because he has a chance to go up to superstar. Hopefully he can do that. A draft story for tight end Duke Solomon, who, yeah, we just had as one of our focus players. And it's a negative draft story, dropping him down draft boards. He had another blow up on the sideline. He's 21 years old, out of USC. Pretty good physicals across the board besides acceleration. And the skill set doesn't look too bad besides the impact block. But apparently he is a 3rd or 4th round talent with a negative draft story. So should we avoid him or should we not? And unfortunately, the other 2 players we had as focus players did not work. It glitched out. It always does for me for some reason. So we only knew what we already knew, which is not very much. We don't know the coverage in zone or man, so he's kind of undraftable. Because if he ends up having like F zone and F man or whatever, he's got to be a linebacker then at that point. And then there's Zamil Johnson. He also had his glitch out. And when you look at the skill set, he could end up being a carry clone. And do we really want another guy who can't cover at linebacker? You can't rush the passer, really. I mean, it's a C. It's not terrible, but it's not good. So should we avoid drafting those guys? Probably. And it looks like that Darnell Mooney failed his breakout scenario. Unfortunately, he only had 4 for 51 and no scores, so he will stay star dev. And we now have the worst record in all of the NFL at 1-10 and have lost 7 straight games. So we might end up with the number 1 pick, but then we go and beat the Lions in overtime, 27-21. So now we have the 3rd worst record, but the Raiders and Lions have played 1 more game than we have, so I'm sure that will even itself out. And we have another breakout scenario, and it will be against the Packers. I guess somebody had a big day against the Cowboys, and it's going to be for Jalen Johnson. That would actually be huge for us to have a superstar corner. He had an interception, 5 catches allowed, and 6 tackles. That doesn't really scream like an amazing game for a corner, but it's not bad. Another draft story, this one for tight end Paul Holloman out of North Carolina. He won the award for being the best tight end in all of college football. Has great total lead across the board physically. And when you get to the skill set, A, awareness, A, medium route running, B, spec catch, B, run block finesse. Is he worth a top 5 pick? I mean, those are some pretty eye-popping skills and physicals. And do we want to spend a top 5 pick on a tight end? I don't know. And it looks like Jalen Johnson failed his breakout scenario against the Packers. He didn't get a single interception or pass deflection. He made 3 tackles, but that's definitely not good enough to go up to superstar dev. We only have 2 games remaining in the regular season, so I would assume that Zach Woodson has played enough snaps to have his dev trait revealed, and he has. Unfortunately, it is just star dev. I was really hoping it would be superstar, but nope, not enough luck for us. We should also probably start to focus in on some ideas that we have for this draft. I mean, we could go with a wide receiver in Andrew Fitzgerald. He has top 5 talent. We have our national scout focusing on wide receivers. I mean, Fitzgerald does have F stamina, but the rest of these skills are really good. There's also Greg Charleston, who has a 1st or 2nd round projection with top 5 talent. So if we really wanted to, we could draft Fitzgerald with our 1st pick in the 1st round, wherever it's going to end up, and then trade back up to the end of the 1st round and take Greg Charleston with another 1st round pick or maybe an early 2nd. That's not a bad idea in my opinion. And one other thing I would like to do before we end the regular season is extend Kyle Herbert. He was an undrafted free agent out of Minnesota that we had as our 3rd quarterback for this season, and I wanted to keep him around. I like a lot of his ratings, so we signed him to a contract extension. With 1 game to go in the regular season, the worst pick we could end up with is pick 3. We lose in the last week, and the Lions actually lose in the last week, which means we're going to have the number 1 overall draft pick. Now, I knew we would be bad this year, but I did not think we'd be that bad. So I guess we'll have the number 1 overall draft pick. That should mean at least we're going to be guaranteed a good player. And there's the playoff picture. If you want to look at it, you can, but we're not too focused on anybody but ourselves in this series. Check out the end of season stats. Justin Fields, he had a pretty good year. 27 touchdowns to just 12 interceptions. Did have a 62% completion percentage, 4,600 passing yards, but he was sacked the 2nd most in the entire NFL. So we have to improve upon that, whether that is on him or the offensive line or the receivers not getting open. I guess we'll try and figure that out. The run game, it was not great towards the end of the year, it looks like. Should we really extend David Montgomery? He missed 2 games. The yards per carry started to fall down. I don't know. I guess we'll have to really think about it. Khalil Herbert and Tariq Cohen both had disappointing years, averaging just around 3 yards a carry. We should probably move on from one of them, maybe both of them. I guess we'll have to figure that out as well. On to the receiving stats, Darnell Mooney ended up with 90 catches, over 1,200 yards, and 7 touchdowns, and he had a fantastic third season as our #1 receiver. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, also kind of a surprise. I mean, I wanted him to be good, but to have 75 for near 1,200 yards and 4 touchdowns on just a $5 million salary, that's really good. Cole Kmet, his ratings are okay, but did I expect 817 yards, 8 touchdowns to lead the team in 83 catches? Not really, so I would say all 3 of them were above expectations, and you know what? So was Shadon Alam, 717 on 57, and 7 receiving touchdowns in his rookie season. I mean, that's great. All 4 of them played above expectations, and hopefully we can build upon that. As far as the other receivers we have, I mean, not much from Andy Isabella, it looks like. He only played in 7 games. David Montgomery contributed a little bit in the receiving game. Tariq Cohen only had 15 catches. Yeah, not much to talk about with these other receivers, I guess. And the offensive line, it doesn't look like it played too well besides our 2 veteran guards, James Daniels and Cody Whitehair. Zach Woodson allowed 14 sacks. Tevin Jenkins allowed 13. Marco Fletcher only allowed 4, even though he's like a 63 overall, so I guess he played really well considering the amount of snaps he played. 769. He played more snaps than Jones did, but allowed the same amount of sacks. That's pretty crazy to me when he's rated so low. So I guess maybe he can be a starter for us down the line, or maybe right away if we really wanted to keep him playing. What about the defense? Roquan Smith led the team in tackles and interceptions, and we already extended him, and I wanted to extend him. Hopefully we can keep building this defense around him because it doesn't look like the rest of it is very good. Khalil Mack ended up with only 9 sacks. We're going to look to trade him this offseason, more than likely. Quinn only had 7.5. I mean, we got to move on from maybe both of them. Charles Carey in his rookie season got over 100 tackles, gave up 36 catches, and only had 2 pass deflections. We did start to play him in the nickel defense as that second linebacker alongside Roquan Smith, and it doesn't look like he played too well in pass coverage, but that's expected. As for our corners, not the best years for anybody besides Michael Davis. I mean, look at those stats. 29 catches allowed, 4 deflections. I guess they were throwing it at Jalen Johnson and Duke Shelley because Michael Davis was just deflecting everything away. Mike Wheatley as an undrafted rookie free agent, that's not bad for filling in for most of the year. Could have been a little better, but that's not too bad. On to special teams, it looks like Cairo Santos was fine. He had one of his field goals blocked. I don't see any problem there. Brian Anger, he only downed 8 inside the 20. I expected that to be a little better. We should take a look at our Pro Bowlers. We have 2 of them. One of them is Darnell Mooney. That is well deserving. The other is Khalil Mack. I mean, I don't think he exactly deserved it. And what does Roquan Smith have to do to make a Pro Bowl? He just keeps getting snubbed year after year. And the Super Bowl matchup is between the Titans and Cowboys, with the Titans taking it 35-21. Derrick Henry also won MVP. I don't know if you noticed it, but the Packers also lost in the NFC Championship game. So I guess if you're a Bears fan and are still watching at this point, that's pretty funny. Ben Jones has retired. We didn't really have plans to bring him back anyway. And before we end the episode, a couple of things I wanted to ask you guys. David Montgomery, should we extend him or should we not? And the other question is, who should we take with the #1 overall draft pick? This mock draft has us taking Andrew Fitzgerald, who we of course have looked at before, and we know he has top 5 talent. But do we really want to take a wide receiver with the #1 overall draft pick? We don't know the combine stuff quite yet. We know he does have top 5 talent, and it's probably worth that pick, but do we want to spend it on a receiver? The other option I'm kind of zeroing in on besides Fitzgerald is Cecil Preston, a 6'2 corner out of Purdue at 182 pounds. We have him 95% scouted. He does have good physicals across the board for a corner of his size. A zone, A injury, A tackle, B man. We don't know the awareness. He's going to be a pretty good player as well, though, I would assume. So of those 2, who would you rather see us take with the #1 overall pick? And the other thing I wanted to point out is that Greg Charleston apparently dropped in talent to round 1 now and is not top 5 talent. I don't even know how that is possible, but it happened. So what do you guys consider year 1 of this franchise? Do you consider it a success or failure? I mean, we did end up having the worst record in the NFL, but that will allow us to have a top pick and get a really good player, which will really help out. I know we're going to have to move on from a bunch of these veterans, especially on defense, and we'll work on doing that next episode. We will have about $72 million in cap space in the #1 overall draft pick to try and turn this team around. Thanks for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know down below about all that stuff, and I will see you next time.